Yesterday, my apartment had 3 doors. Today, it has 4. For the past 3 years, I've lived in my apartment. I know every little corner, every nook and cranny. So when I came home yesterday and saw an entirely new door in the hallway that wasn't there the day before, I was shocked. My landlord swears up and down that the building hasn't been renovated since he purchased it 30 years ago. And as far as I know, none of the apartments have been renovated either. It's an older building. It's not like they were gonna start renovating now. So I decided to check out this new mystery door. I knocked lightly, no response. I tried the knob. Locked. Thinking nothing was in there, I used my key to open the door. Inside was a small square room with one window at the far end, which let in a single beam of sunlight. It was very dark and dusty and looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. From the look of it, no one had entered this room in a long time. The only things in the room were 2 mismatched chairs, a wooden desk, and a metal suitcase resting against the wall. None of the furniture matched any era that I recognized. It almost looked like they had taken pieces from different time periods and assembled them all together. I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. It was as though this room was frozen in time. Carefully, I approached the desk and placed my hand on its surface. An instant jolt shot through my arm. As I pulled away, I noticed the peeling wallpaper underneath. What I thought was dirt turned out to be a series of small handprints. Someone had scratched them into the wall. I could make out 2 distinct prints, one of a child's hand and another, a full-sized hand. They were somehow both upside down. How could that be? And then I saw them. Tucked behind the desk were several old photographs lying face down on the floor. Curiosity got the better of me. I bent down and picked them up. Each photograph showed a different group of people, but none of them looked familiar. I knew these weren't my neighbors. It was almost as if they were from a completely different world. They were all smiling and laughing, their faces filled with life. One of the images, however, caught my attention more than the others. It was the same room I had just come from, or what I assumed was the same room. The people in the picture were standing in what was now my living room. They seemed happy, carefree. A strange feeling washed over me. Why did these people look so out of place? Who were they, and why did they seem so lost? Then it hit me. This wasn't just an old photograph. It was a snapshot of my apartment's past. As I stood there staring at the picture, I could feel the presence of those long gone, as if their spirits were reaching out to me from beyond the grave. Their laughter echoed in my ears. Their footsteps pounded in my heart. Suddenly, I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to escape back to the safety of my own time. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something that made me freeze in my tracks. One of the photographs had been moved slightly. When I had seen it moments before, it had been lying flat. But now it was propped up against the desk, as if someone had placed it there intentionally. I tried to shake off the unnerving feeling that had crept up on me. Maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. I told myself there was a logical explanation for everything. Surely this room was just a bizarre storage space that the landlord had forgotten about. I hurried back to my apartment, eager to put this unsettling experience behind me. Once inside, I locked the door and breathed a sigh of relief. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway outside my door. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Were those footsteps coming from the room I had just discovered? Cautiously, I made my way to the door and pressed my ear against it. The footsteps stopped. I listened intently, but all I could hear was the sound of my own breathing. Relieved, but shaken, I stepped away from the door. Perhaps it was just a pipe or some such mundane explanation. Trying to dismiss the incident, I busied myself with my evening routine. But as the minutes passed, a new sound reached my ears. Faint whispers, too low to make out any words, but undeniably human. They seemed to emanate from the same spot where I had heard the footsteps. Intrigued and a bit frightened, I couldn't resist the urge to investigate. Once again, I made my way to the door and peered through the keyhole. To my astonishment, the room was empty. The furniture had been moved around, but there was no sign of anyone else. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a ghostly waltz. I felt a sudden surge of panic. Was I truly alone in this apartment? Was there something sinister lurking in the shadows? Determined to find answers, I took a deep breath and opened the door. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of movement. To my surprise, the whispering intensified. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. On the desk, the new photograph appeared. It was a picture of me. I didn't recognize the angle, but it was clearly me asleep in my bed. But how? How could someone have taken a picture of me without waking me up? Fear tightened its grip around my throat. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. In that moment, I knew I wasn't dealing with a mundane occurrence. This was something sinister, something that defied explanation. I turned to flee, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. But as I reached for the door, it slammed shut with a resounding boom. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my chest. The lights flickered ominously, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. And then I heard it, a soft, wet breathing sound right behind me. Frozen with terror, I slowly turned around to face the corner from which the noise had come. But it was empty. I don't know how long I stood there paralyzed by fear, but eventually the realization of what had happened dawned on me. I had been trapped in a time warp. That room was a portal to a different era, a place where time stood still and where the living and the dead intertwined, and somehow I had become entangled in its mysterious web. Desperate to escape, I rushed to the door, my hands shaking as I rattled the handle. But it was locked. Panic surged through me. I screamed, my voice echoing in the confined space. Suddenly, I felt a cold, bony fingernail dig into my shoulder. I whirled around, but there was no one there. Then I noticed the window. Hope surged through me. I raced toward it, fumbling with the latch. As I finally managed to pry it open, I felt a rush of cool air on my skin. I squeezed through the opening, ignoring the shards of glass that tore at my clothes. Once outside, I stumbled onto the fire escape and raced down the stairs, each step echoing my pounding heart. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my own front door. When I finally managed to unlock it and step inside, I collapsed onto the floor, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. But even in my state of terror, I couldn't help but wonder about the hidden room. Had it been a figment of my imagination, or was it still there waiting? With newfound determination, I got to my feet and walked back to the mysterious door. I reached out a hand, my fingers hovering over the cold metal, but when I pushed it open, I gasped. The room was gone. In its place was the same old hallway I had always known. The door to my apartment was back to being the only one on the wall. As I stepped into my apartment, I noticed something lying on my floor. A photograph. It was the picture that had been in the room, the one where I was sleeping. But now it was creased and dirty, as if it had been trampled on. How had it gotten there? Had it fallen out of the room somehow? I stared at the image of myself asleep, wondering if I had truly been in danger, or if I was simply making up a horror story. But the memory of the cold touch on my neck and the eerie breathing in my ear was still fresh in my mind. Shaken but relieved, I tucked the photograph under my pillow, hoping it would bring me comfort. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but wonder about the secrets hidden within my apartment walls. Was it really a portal to another time and dimension, or was I simply losing my sanity? Maybe it was a dream, but I still have that photo, and it scares me every time I see it.